everyone. I'm Keith Mathis. Welcome to our webinar today as we talk about changes in the PMP certification. Now today, one of the things that we're going to focus on is changes that took place in January of 2021. And then, as you know, the PMI material was updated again in January of 2022. And so there have been some additional adjustments to the PMP test to go along with that material. So we're going to go through some of those changes and kind of update you on what's different, what you need to study for when you get ready for the PMP test. First off, as we talk about changes in the PMP exam, we're going to focus on trying to get all this in under an hour. So I'm your instructor, Keith Mathis. We've been doing this 30 years. We've been preparing people to take their PMP certification. We have prepared thousands to go through the PMP. Up until January of 2021, we wrote our own material, just like all the providers did worldwide, to help people get through and pass the PMP exam. In that material, we not only talked about all the topics in the content area, but we also supported them with a PMBOK. We also supported them with an additional text to help them get through it. Today, none of that material is needed. You buy your material from PMI, you end up learning that material. You don't need to be reading the PMBOK or anybody else's book to be able to pass this material, to be able to pass this test. So let's start off with the adjustments that have been made to the requirements to qualify for the PMP test. First, you're looking at a 4-year degree and 36 months of leading projects with 35 hours of training. Now, your 35 hours of training focuses on, can be done by a PMP exam prep boot camp, or it can be also 35 hours of training that you have done on project management and other means. You have to have 36 months of project management experience. The application is not as daunting as it used to be, so you have an opportunity to be able to list your projects and things like this without having to put in all the specific hours for each process. If you have a high school diploma or associate's degree, you do have to have 60 months of leading projects in order to be able to qualify. One of the first things that is adjusting with the material is the PMI triangle. And so the PMI triangle is evolving. And so on the left is the current triangle, which is technical, project management, leadership, strategic, and business management. And they are adjusting the triangle to ways of working, power skills, and business acumen. And so we think that this will be happening in February of 2023, but we're not totally sure about that. But we do know that it is evolving to the new triangle. In the material that you get from PMI for at the boot camps, you will be given topics and content that is focused on the ECO. The ECO is the exam content outline. Now, one of the things that was always a challenge with the PMP test is that the exam content outline was basically topics, and you weren't real sure exactly what areas was going to be included in that topic. If we were talking about risk, I mean, a lot can be said about risk, for an example. So your ECO goes right along with the material that you buy from PMI. And so if you're going to buy that material from PMI, you have to go through a ATP, an authorized training partner with PMI, and that material is part of your boot camp. Now, the new PMP exam format. Your new format is going to be 180 questions. They're going to give you 230 minutes to take the entire test, but you do have 2 10-minute breaks for the test. Now, one of the things that we have noticed is that many of times everybody breaks at the same time, is what we're being told by people who have taken both the virtual test or the face-to-face test. And so, yes, you can take this virtually. However, one of the things to keep in mind is that you can't have anybody in the room with you. You can't have anything on your walls or on your desk. And so you have to use your video camera to show that. You've got to have a great internet connection. And so if you have a hiccup with your internet, many of the people that we've had in the last 2 years have had to go and take it face to face at another time because their internet disconnected. So there are some downsides to that. The questions on the test have even changed to where you have multiple choice, multiple response, matching, hotspot, and even some fill in the blank are associated with that. So you have a lot more types of questions that you're having. For an example, you might have one that has 7 answers on it, and they say 5 of these is this. Pick out those 5. So you've got to pick 5 out of 7. So the dynamics of the test have changed significantly and is a little bit different. The other thing about the test that has changed is that they have been able to shorten it a little bit, shorten the content a little bit to where you have 5 main sections that you will study in the boot camp. You'll have lesson 1 where you're creating a high performing team. And so you're going to have a lot of information about teaming. Now they're going to flip flop in that teaming back and forth from traditional teaming to Agile teams. And the reason is because 50% of your content is going to be on Agile. Lesson 2, they're going to talk about starting the project. So they're going to spend a great deal of time on requirements gathering and starting to plan. In lesson 3, this is going to be execution and starting to look at performance. And then lesson 4, we'll talk about performance and then closing the project out. And then lesson 5 will focus on keeping the business in mind. So they're going to be looking at the possibility of you having the internal governance and politics and different pieces like that. Virtual teams is a new topic. In traditional project management, you normally had your team close by. Due to the emphasis of so many things virtually, virtual teams and teams being run from all over the world, this is a big emphasis now. And you're having to understand how to be able to use emotional intelligence to be able to work with everyone, including your virtual teams. Also, one of the things that they have talked about is the project responsibilities, tailoring the team to the team need. It could be the process, it could be the roles and responsibility. Agile is focused on self-organizing teams and assessing their work requirements. Of course, if you're doing Agile projects, one of the things to keep in mind is this team is accountable for their own estimates and their own work. And so that's going to help you in the PMP test as well. One of the things too is the topic of knowledge transfer. As you know, PMI has been concerned about knowledge transfer from the team over to the customer at the end of the project, and so they have built in a lot of things in knowledge transfer for this new material and this new test. One is going to be high facilitation skills, because as on the Agile side, you're facilitating a lot of meetings, you're facilitating a lot of opinions. Also, checking the team charter that they have in the middle here. They have created what they call a team charter. The team charter is not the same as a project charter, because a project charter helps get the project going. The team charter is how we're going to work together, how we make decisions, where we have our meetings, when we have our meetings, and those type of things. And this has really been good continuity for being able to pull together your code of conduct and how you expect people to work together. And then the other piece of knowledge transfer, it's what they're calling information radiators. If you are working on the Agile and Scrum side, then you already know that information radiators are large boards that are put up talking about and showing the progress that that particular project is making. And so the idea is it is to radiate information to everyone about that project. And so there is a large piece, like I said, 50% of this test is going to be on Agile, and Scrum is going to be a piece of that. Then information radiators is going to be something that you have to understand how it works and be able to pick up on those questions. The team charter that we talked about focuses on the team to establish values, agreements, practices, and performs as it performs its work throughout together on the project. So your team charter is a big document that they emphasize in several places of the new material. In that team charter, you're focused on values, guidelines for communication, decision-making guidelines, conflict resolution strategies, meeting times, frequencies, any type of agreements that you make. So the emphasis is really on building that self-organizing team through a team charter. Now, it doesn't keep that team charter from being used on the traditional side as well, but it is a good tool to be able to help in building your teams. The other thing that you'll notice is there's new terms that they have put in, and some of these terms might be a little different than what you're used to. For an example, blackout and go live terms. Blackout, times when deliverables are handed over for implementation, but changes are suspended, and so that might be a little different than what you're used to. And then go live occurs at the end of the project timeline, and so these are new terms that have been added, and they're part of your test. And then Agile is going to use iterations or sprints to produce the project. Now, one of the things to keep in mind about Agile is that in the agile world you don't really provide half a activity or feature or user story. And so in agile the mindset is if it's not 100% finished, then I don't hand it off to you. And so let's say I've got 15 features and we do 13 of them are complete, but 14 and 15 are not complete, and we run out of time on that sprint. I would hand the first 13 off, but 14 and 15 we would talk about it with the product owner, decide what we're going to do with 14 and 15. We might run a short sprint just of those 14 and 15 might go into the next sprint, and so we talk about what we're going to do with those incomplete activities. So that's a whole different mindset than traditional. In traditional we report minimal stuff all the time, and so we report we're 75% done, we're 33% finished, whatever the case is. So we report percentages of completion in traditional all the time. Team decision-making tools. One of the emphasis that you will notice is that the emphasis is on how we're going to get along as a team. That's why you have a team charter, but this is ways of working, WOW, wow. So this is setting the team norms, the behavior, how we're going to get along. What do we do when we have a disagreement? And so it's very, very important in those high-functioning teams because you're going to be pitching different solutions and positioning yourself on how you feel about certain aspects of that project, what you think is going to make it successful. Estimates are another change, and this is probably one of the most radical changes. Now, for many of you, if you have struggled with the thought of the PMP because of all the calculations, you're absolutely on board with everybody else. It was tough when I did the PMP for the calculations. You had to memorize the formulas and do a lot of calculations, so it was heavy duty. The calculations have been removed. You do not do calculations on the PMP test right now. So you have calculations are presented, but you're asked to interpret them on the test, but you're not asked to have to actually calculate them. So in traditional, one of the things that they're presenting here is this is the optimistic, pessimistic, and most likely divided by 3. And of course, this can be utilized both in agile and also in traditional. And so this is one of the estimates that they present. But the biggest thing for you is that you're not going to have to calculate. Now, I'll tell you why I think that probably is. Those of you who take the test virtually, one of the things that you're going to notice is you can't have any paper and you cannot have a calculator on your table or on your desk. And so as you know, in doing all these calculations, paper is one of the things that really makes a difference in being able to come up with the right answer. And so many of you probably will notice that if the paper's moved and the calculator's moved, then they have reduced the amount of calculation that anyone would do. And so right now, we're not seeing any calculation from people who are taking the test. But you do have to interpret some of the findings, and so that will make a difference on some of these. You will also see team task accountability. Now, you're very familiar from the traditional side with the Gantt chart. However, at the bottom, you'll notice that this is a Kanban board. And so one of the things that you'll use on the Agile side will be Kanban boards and some Gantt charts to be able to tell people where the project is. Now, once again, you're trying to transition that project over to complete as fast as possible. And so your burn up, burn down charts, Kanban boards, those are going to be some of the different tools that you will use over on the Agile side. Retrospective, maybe that's a new name for you, but retrospective is the same as a lessons learned. A retrospective is done at the end of a sprint and at the end of the Agile or Scrum project. And so you are looking for things that you would change. It is part of continuous improvement, so you're looking for ways to be able to make it better and to make the projects better, the processes better, and to be able to build some type of knowledge transfer of what you've learned from previous sprints. So the retrospective is a new piece of information. In that retrospective, it has several components such as setting the stage, gathering and sharing data, and also generating insights of what we would do differently. So you can see how this aligns so closely with the lessons learned. And the point is that it is basically a lessons learned that because you're looking at what's working, what were the challenges, what were the problems, and that's going to help you be able to come up with some kind of strategy to make the next iteration or sprint run smoother. Also, training and coaching. In training, you're focusing on building individual skills, and in coaching, you're helping develop well rounded individuals with long term professional relationships. Now, training and coaching has taken a huge increase into the PMP test. PMI has always felt like we needed to train the customer with the project and with project skills so that they can run the project. When we're finished with it, they can run it over in operations. But what you'll notice in this material is that you're going to feel almost like a training manager in some of this because that training is very heavy, and you're going to notice that you're marketing the training class. You're signing people up when they get there. You're making sure they have the right curriculum, and by the time you finish, you feel like, wow, I feel like a training manager scheduling that training class. And so that's how the material is positioned right now. And then coaching has taken a true increase too, because once again, coaching is much more popular today than what it was maybe 20 years ago. And coaching is helping many of the inexperienced project team members and managers to be able to apply some of the new experiences and new expertise. And so both of these are going to be very dominant on the PMP test. T-shaped skills. One of the things you will notice is that you will have different terms, different things to encourage you to share information, share skills. And so agile teams will invest in becoming more cross-functional. So rather than being limited with the SME kind of mindset, you're going to become more cross-functional. You learn more about some of the other aspects of the project. But when they talk about T-shaped skills, they're talking about the breadth going across the top. They're talking about the depth going up and down. And so, in other words, the depth of knowledge is going to get deeper and the breadth of knowledge is going to get wider. Required competencies. Competencies are going to focus on knowledge, skills, and other type of attributes. And so stakeholders have unique training needs. Now, once again, because you're trying to take the team and upgrade their competencies, and you're trying to take the customer and upgrade their competencies, and in some cases challenge the status quo of the culture, this is one of the emphasis that will come up several times on this emphasis of training and adjusting someone's competencies. Elements of the training will involve several things. For an example, most of us know what face-to-face instructor-led training is. This would be virtual classroom where you have a live instructor, but it's all done virtually. Many could do self-paced e-learning. That's going to be on your own, and you're going to be self-paced, meaning that you can take as long or as short as you want to finish the training. Document reviews, interactive simulations, on-the-job training, a lot of different aspects on training that you have to know. And all of this is PMP content to help you be able to know what are the different aspects that you could provide training to your team. Training options. So virtual instructor-led training, they've given you a description of each of these: self-paced e-learning, document reviews. Several places in the material, the PMP material, you'll see descriptions like this. And this is good. This is a good slide because it's introducing new concepts, but it's giving you a decent description. Virtual team members need several things. So, for an example, they need to understand shared goals, the clear purpose, the clarity on roles and expectations. All of those different pieces are going to make a difference on whether the virtual team member is going to be able and feel comfortable doing the work in remote locations. That virtual team member needs to be engaged. Just like we talk in traditional project management about stakeholder engagement, we need to be able to take that team member who's virtual and be able to engage them as well. Now, it's obviously going to be different because you're not seeing them face to face. They're not coming to the office, or they're not coming to a particular location. And so you're trying to teach them the team dynamics, transparency, accountability, attention to effective communication. So how do we communicate? How do we make sure we get the right information and that we're following up on that information to be able to make sure that people are really doing what they say they're doing? So you're looking at the performance piece as well. Virtual team best practices that you're looking at, starting with the team charter. That charter really reinforces how we're going to work together, how we're going to act. And so that's going to make a huge difference on how we're going to be able to get along. And so the team charter is going to make a difference with the virtual team, as well as we're trying to reinforce right behaviors and good communication, good interaction, support, transparency, all of those type of things is part of this. Now remember, 50% of your test is on Agile. And so that means that you're going to go from test question to test question, changing gears from traditional to agile on these. So project vision. At the start of a project, you need a clear vision of the desired objectives. You also need to understand and appreciate how the project vision aligns with the organization's strategic goals. Now, they've taken a bigger emphasis in taking the project and its goals and showing how it relates all the way up to the strategic plan. So this is a much bigger issue on the test now than ever before. And because you're talking about Agile, you're having to look at product and product scope in addition to project scope, because the product, you're going to be producing products on the Agile and Scrum side with some of the questions that you're working on. The project charter is still functioning the way it always has, in which it is going to start the project, appoint the project manager, fund the project once it's signed, and those type of things. So it is that type of document that is going to be starting in the initiating process group for traditional, but in a hybrid project, which is talked about a little bit on the PMP test, you could still have a project charter that is happening, and even though the project itself might be run by Scrum or with Agile. Iteration planning. This is the way that you're going to be running the project in Agile or Scrum. So you're going to run them in iterations or sprints, and so that's going to be something like a 4-week sprint to be able to produce a document, to produce a product that is going to then be demoed or reviewed by the customer and then handed to that customer to begin using, and then you're going to do your retrospective on that sprint to learn some new things for your next sprint. So iteration planning is happening. Now remember a couple of things. In Agile and Scrum, you're not locked into due dates. In Agile and Scrum, you also do not have a big, massive plan that tells where every iteration is happening. You can draft a plan to where you can show by velocity when some of these iterations are going to begin and end, but it's not a hard date. You still have that versatility for the customer to make changes before that iteration starts. Now, generally, when the iteration starts, no changes happen. But the point is that you're still not locked in on those dates, is what's going on. The only time you're locked in is because you have a 4-week time box, and the term time box that we're telling you about is a term for the amount of time. So if we're running an iteration at 4 weeks, then that's a 4-week time box. Then at the end of that 4 weeks, it stops, and we hand off what's finished, and we talk about what's not finished and decide what to do with it. Also, in Agile and Scrum, you have what's known as Agile Ceremonies. And so Scrum is an Agile framework, and they're using that word framework on purpose because they don't want to call it a methodology. You have a lot more freedom and flexibility there. So you do have an Agile framework to where you can use components of this. And also another ceremony would be sprint planning. Also, a sprint is a time box iteration in Scrum, because a sprint is going to have a specific amount of time that we're going to do that sprint, and then we're going to finish that sprint and turn that particular feature or functionality over to the customer. Other ceremonies would be daily stand-ups. Daily stand-ups are 15 minutes long, so it has a time box of 15 minutes. We have a sprint review at the end of an iteration. That's going to be a ceremony. And then we have the sprint retrospective, which is facilitated by the Scrum Master, which is going to be a ceremony. Now, one of the things to keep in mind on the new PMP test is that it's not perfect in the way it describes things. For an example, if we were looking at true Scrum and Agile, we don't need a project manager. We have a product owner who's working with the customer, and they are refining the features and functionality. The team is doing the estimates, and so they agree on what they're going to produce within an iteration. They produce that, they do a demo, and then they hand that product off to the customer to start working with. Then they do a retrospective, and then they move to the next iteration, working with the product owner, and the product owner has created a sprint backlog of items that should be done in the very next sprint. So all of that I've just described to you does not include a project manager. On the test, though, we know that from time to time, they will ask about a project manager. The project manager is doing this, but yet you can tell by everything else it's a Scrum or it is Agile. So don't worry about that. Just stick with the main roles of that test question and see what they're asking you. Now, most of you already have heard this, but let me say it again. The test still has very complex questions and complex answers. And so sometimes in many of the questions, you're not looking for an answer, you're looking for the best answer, because you might have a couple of right answers on that test question, but one answer is considered to be a better answer because of the way they have positioned that test question. This is a task board. This is new to the PMP test. And so a task board is going to be showing you, this would be classified as an information radiator. This would be in a public place. And so this shows you the to-do, what's in the progress or process or progress, and then what will be finished or what is already finished. And so these are put up about the projects. It could be a lot of different things, but these are put up so that we can walk by, look at it, and know what's happening with that project instantly. And so that's why it needs to be high visibility, low tech, so that people can use this and benefit from this. Also, reaching consensus. The PMP test has now included something, all the different estimating techniques and agreement techniques. And so for an example, they have given you the fist of 5. And so if I have a closed fist, this means I do not agree. This means I completely agree. This means I'm kind of in the middle. Roman voting, up and down. Yes, I agree. No, I don't. If I'm in the middle, then I'm kind of neutral. Polling, we poll people and ask them one at a time. Dot voting, we've got so many dots and we're putting those dots on the various solutions or ideas that we agree with most. So they're trying to do some things that have gotten away from the bias. And of course, that's gone into your PMP test. So these are used a lot more in Agile than they are anything else. And so they have reinforced this to make sure a PMP project manager understands and knows these methods. Estimation techniques continue with planning poker. For an example, you have maybe heard about the Fibonacci numbers. And so the Fibonacci numbers is the current number added to the one in front of it will give the next number. So you start with number 1 and then go to number 2. 2 and 1 is 3. And then 3 plus the one in front of it is 2 would give you 5. And you go all the way up to as far as you need to go. Sometimes the Fibonacci numbers will also have a 50. They might have 100. And so they might have yes or no, and or some other words in that sequence. But planning poker is really used so that you can get away from bias. So we might present how much a user story or a feature and ask you how long it is. And so I'll take a post-it note right now, and let's assume this is my Fibonacci card. It looks like a deck of cards. And so they show that feature and they say, how long do you think it is? And so let's say I write 10 on it. Well, I hold it on my table. Nobody sees it yet. And so then the facilitator, the Scrum Master, says, how long? And I say 10. You said 8. The other person said 15. And now we talk about that range of estimates to see what we can agree on. You also have been exposed to, on the test too, to what is called story pointing. If you've never heard of this, story pointing is a fictitious number that you are given to represent a time frame. And so you will see this a lot in software development, and in which they have taken hours and turned them into story points, and that shows the relative size of programming and testing and work to be able to produce that particular feature. So these are all new terms and concepts on the PMP test. Also, you've been exposed to maybe the XP metaphor. And so this is part of what is known as extreme programming, which has influenced Agile and Scrum in many ways. One such idea is the idea of paired programming, where one person is programming and another person is watching over that to make sure that they have done everything right. But XP metaphor is part of this and describes a common vision, how it works, metaphors, and they give you some characteristics of metaphor. But this might be a new term that's on the test that you've never seen before either. Creating a culture of urgency for value delivery. Now, you remember the reason why people are doing Scrum or Agile is that the customer wants value, wants the flexibility of change, but they want value faster. And so they're getting something every 3 to 5 weeks or whatever the length of time is for the sprint. This is beneficial to them because they are able to start seeing something and giving feedback to the team and making adjustments. Remember that it is part of what is known as change-driven project management. And so that's why people want this. But you also are looking at the culture of how you can benefit the organization, how you can benefit the team, and using the organization and even the internal politics to be able to help your project, part of communication and even maybe getting decisions made. The term servant leadership, it's been out since the 70s, but it has been embraced by PMI because the servant leader is the idea of serving the team. And so the project manager as the servant leader would be working with the team for the purpose of removing roadblocks and blockers so that the team can run as fast as possible. So this is a great concept for being able to surface what those roadblocks and blockers are, and to have that individual who's running that. Now, servant leadership maybe has never been part of the PMP boot camp and has not been part of the test. It is now, and so you'll see this come up several times in your PMI material. Product box collaboration game. One of the ideas that comes out of Agile and Scrum is the idea of a box that is going to show the features, functionality, how this product or how this particular product or feature is going to work. An easy way to keep up with this is to think about a box of cereal or the box that your software was purchased in, and as you read the back of the box, it tells you what it does, what it doesn't do, and so forth. Well, that's the same kind of idea that you have with a product box and the benefits listed on the back. And so this is a new term that has been added to the test. Sprint reviews or demos. Now, we know that once a sprint is running for so many weeks that we will come to the end, and when we come to the end, we will do a review or a demo so that the customer and the people can see what we've accomplished, okay? So then you're going to be handing that off to them so that they can start working with it as well, and then you will be doing a retrospective. This is all new information on the PMP test. Performance reporting. Performance reporting has always been part of project management, and it's a heavy, important thing, okay? However, as you look at this list, there's only a couple of things on this list that were part of traditional. A lot of this has been added, and it's part of Agile and Scrum. So the first piece of performance reporting is going to be information radiators. An information radiator allows people to know what's happening at a glance by looking at that board, okay, that visual board. You're going to have burn down and burn up charts, which are going to show the features or the story points or user stories coming down on the chart or going up on the chart. That's all it is a burn up, burn down chart. And so it'll start at the top of 200 features we're going to try to implement, and it burns down to show how many are still left that we still need to complete. If you're burning up, you're starting at 0, and you're burning up, showing how many you have actually completed, trying to get to 200 features. So those are very common types of reporting tools. Earned value management reports. You see that over on the traditional side, EVM, because you're going to see CPI, SPI, and all of those type of things. Variance analysis reports. Here's where we are. Here's where we need to be. And so we've done that for years. Work performance reports. We've also had quality reports for a long time. Dashboards might be new to you because there's normally the idea of creating a set of dashboards to give a visual to the calculations and the performance that we're looking at. And so those visuals would be part of a dashboard. And so every week or 2 weeks, we would update the dashboard, and people would have the ability to be able to talk about the most important things. And that's one of the reasons why we would do color coding a lot of times with the dashboard. So if it's red, then we're going to talk about it because it's in trouble. If it's green, then everything's good. And so we look at that. And then task boards. Disciplined Agile, the acronym for this is DA. This is a new concept for your PMP test. PMI has purchased the Disciplined Agile company, and so they are now offering the Disciplined Agile certification. So this will be on your test probably for sure as well. All of this will probably be on your test because it's all new. And so the odds are the newer stuff will probably be on there at a higher rate. But Disciplined Agile gives you the capability to use Agile and traditional in a little bit of a hybrid approach. And so Disciplined Agile is something that you're going to probably see quite a bit. The Disciplined Agile approach supports the dynamic work environment. And so a product owner creates what's called an MBI, a minimum business increment that defines work requirements to deliver the stated value, and something for the team to work on quickly. So you'll notice that the product backlog and the MBI have a lot of similarities. And the reason is it does because your DA, your Disciplined Agile, calls it something a little bit different, calls the features a little something different. So your product backlog or your sprint backlog fit your Scrum and Agile, but your Disciplined Agile, they call it the minimum business increment. So it's very similar to the MVP, minimum viable product. So you'll have two different names depending on which strategy or which methodology they're asking you about on that test. Decision tree analysis. Now, in January of 2021, when they made their initial changes, the decision tree analysis was pretty substantial. They had a calculation there, a series of calculations that took a few minutes, but it was really, really beneficial. However, now that we've gone to video testing, that calculation would be very difficult to do without paper and a calculator. And so now what seems to be happening is they're asking you questions about decision tree analysis with it already filled out when it comes up on the test. So the point is that when you look at something like this is going to be something that if you're not familiar with decision tree analysis, listen very carefully when you're in the boot camp, because you want to be able to understand how this works and how decisions are fleshed out. Now, using the decision tree analysis, the goal behind this is so that you can prove what answer or what solution is better than another. Also, you sometimes get involved into calculating the expected monetary value. And of course, the expected monetary value of these decisions tell you which decision is the best based on the finance, based on money. And so it is, you're not just saying I like company B, you're saying company B is going to benefit our project from this aspect this way financially. So you'll be able to share a lot of that. Now, let me share a couple of things with you for those of you who are thinking about doing the PMP test. 2023, this is our 2023 schedule for the PMP mastermind groups. Now, let's understand what this is. This is a free service that we started a year before last. And so it's 5 days long. It's an hour a day is all it's taking. You can work the hour any way you want. We've got a lot of videos on there, but we start talking to you about the different aspects of the PMP. One of those is how to apply setting up your all of your projects so that you can fit into the application what PMI wants you to do. So you have a video every day, and so you have some work to do. It's under an hour every day, and so you do that for 5 days. You get 5 contact hours or PDUs for that. And so these are the dates in 2023 that we have this set up, free for anybody who wants to be there. The other thing that's interesting is that automatically by attending the mastermind group, if you decide to come to one of our boot camps, rather than paying $28.50, which is the normal price, you get our lowest price of $15.50. And so that includes the guarantee. And so you get the lowest price just by attending this. Also, during that week, there's a drawing for one person to win a free boot camp. And so we give one away every time. So there's going to be 3 people that will attend a boot camp next year that we have given away free at each one of these boot camps. So go to our website, sign up for the free 5-day PMP mastermind group, and I do 2 Zoom calls during that week so that you can ask any question you want about the PMP, and we just try to help you get through that. And then hopefully you'll come to our boot camp, but at least you'll understand what's happening with the PMP to go to somebody's boot camp. The other thing is these are the boot camps that we will do. All of these will be virtual, so you can attend anywhere in the world. They're all going to be on Central Time. And of course, if you sign up, you will have the PMP material that is written and designed by PMI. And so every person will receive their material both electronically and in a hardcover, and so that you will have that for the class. So once you sign up, we get it shipped to you, and that way you can start reading it and being part of it. Now, let me say it again. You're going to have the PMP material written by PMI. All authorized training partners are providing the PMI material as part of their boot camp. Now, let me share with you a couple of other things that we do. First off, we get the material to you both in hardback and digital. Second thing that we do is that we have purchased over 300 questions written by PMI that are going to be part of our class. So you'll do 100 for a final test for the boot camp, but you're going to have almost 220 more questions that you're going to take from our website to be able to help you get through that PMP test. We want you to see test questions written by PMI before you sit down to take that test, because we want you to be able to pass the first time. Now, to make sure this helps you a little bit, let me just tell you a couple of things I think is important. When we were writing our own material, as all providers did, we were running an 85% first-time passing rate, which is phenomenal. If you don't know what the passing rates are for people, that's a high first-time passing rate. Many people were running a 50% first-time passing rate. Ours was a 85% first-time with 99% out of 3. Our new passing rate with the new material, and we are 2.5 years into this, is a 95 to a 97% first time passing rate, and we're running 99% out of all three as well. So the material is excellent material to be able to get you through the PMP boot camp. You do not need to read PMBOK. You do not need to be part of reading somebody else's book or buying somebody else's book. You're going to have the material you need for this class as part of the boot camp, and that material alone is going to get you through it, and you'll be able to pass this test. Now, let me thank you so much for being here and being part of this. I want to thank you so much and wish you well as you get ready to do your PMP. I know there's anxiety with that. It was for me as well, but we specialize in being able to help people get through that struggle with test taking skills. I'm one who struggles with it, and so to be able to help you, we take you through test taking strategies to help you be able to think through how to dissect that question and come closer to being able to get the right answer consistently. So let me thank you so much for being here today. I wish you well as you do your PMP, okay? Bye now. Have a great week. Bye, everyone.